Hello, everyone. We're going to start the presentation in just a moment. We're just waiting to get the lights down and make sure everybody's out of the lobby. Thank you for coming tonight. Who are we and why are we here? We are citizens from different community groups. Citizens for Sensible Development in El Dorado Hills, Save Our County, Green Valley Alliance, Shingle Springs Community Alliance, and Rural Communities United. These are groups from throughout our county that are concerned about the current general plan and ordinance changes and their impact on the quality of life in El Dorado County. Why are we here tonight? The county is currently in the process of updating the general plan and zoning ordinance. County residents who know about this update are being misled by the very people who are supposed to be protecting us. And the rest of the county has no idea what the general plan update is. We're being told that this is just an update, and changes are targeted or minimal. And yet, in reality, our protections are being stripped away. We need your help, and you can't help if you don't know about it. Last November, the Board of Supervisors approved the Town Center Apartments project. That approval traded quality commercial area for extreme high density residential development, demonstrating the board's willingness to ignore both the law and the need to balance land use. We have initiated litigation to correct that action. We hope you will question what you hear from the county staff. Perhaps it will be possible to avoid the cost and effort of further legal action if together we can convince the Board of Supervisors to change their course. Lori Parlin will start off our presentation with a few basic facts about the general plan, the zoning ordinance, and the upcoming changes, followed by Dawn Van Dyke to discuss traffic and water. You have a copy of the agenda in your handout. Please write down any questions you have and save them for the end of the presentation. Please drop the comment card in the donation jar or hand it to one of us on the way out. Once again, welcome, and thank you for attending tonight.
Thank you, Charlotte. So the general plan and zoning ordinance are the two main documents guiding land use in the county. The general plan is the county's vision for the next 20 years. The title for our general plan is A Plan for Managed Growth and Open Roads, a plan for quality neighborhoods and traffic relief. The Board of Supervisors have a lot of power over land use. 3 of them could vote to change policies within the general plan and our zoning ordinance on any given day. Unfortunately, the county's vision for managed growth and traffic relief is different than that of most residents. The county pursues high-density housing to receive incentive grant funding. Developers love high-density projects because it is cheaper to build when housing is packed tightly together. But residents are drawn here for open space and scenic beauty. There is the conflict. This map, it's El Dorado County. 1.1 million acres, 650,000 of those acres are forest land. Here's an excerpt from page 2 of our general plan. Quote, El Dorado County is blessed with abundant natural resources and has long been recognized for its spectacular beauty. While impacted, these same attributes exist today. The county has a tradition of appreciating and conserving these resources, using them wisely, and upholding a strong ethic of stewardship over these assets. It is the combination of these features that are now referred to as rural character, unquote. This is so important that it is on page 2 of our general plan, and it applies to you whether you live in El Dorado Hills or up in Lake Tahoe. If we allow our general plan to be changed too drastically, this rural character will be lost forever. So let's zoom in and take a closer look at the map. This map shows the county's plan for future development. The red lines show where the highest density development is planned. These are known as community regions. These community regions were established with very little public understanding that these areas were to become the highest density development. Much of the land inside the community regions is actually rural. This rural land is now a target for developers. The zoning ordinance, it provides the detailed standards for implementing the general plan, such as setbacks and building heights and avoidance of incompatible uses. This photo shows an example of incompatible uses. Again, 3 supervisors can wreak havoc on our quality of life by just 3 votes. Remember, one man's barriers are another man's protections. In El Dorado County, we have a voter-approved general plan. After multiple years of legal challenges beginning in 1996, the voters approved the 2004 general plan based on the court-required protective policies that were embedded in it and the promise to implement these policies. So here's the status of the 2004 general plan. The majority of the court-required protective policies have yet to be implemented. The county has never adequately budgeted for implementing the 2004 general plan. Instead of implementing the plan, in 2011, the Board of Supervisors passed resolutions to amend the general plan and completely change the zoning ordinance, calling it an update. Okay, I have a question for you. With a show of hands, how many of you knew before this meeting that the general plan was being updated? Anyone? Good. Okay, how many of you knew before this meeting that the zoning ordinance was being updated? Okay, here's the big question. How many of you actually know what's inside those updates? I can't even raise my hand because it's so huge. So, in 2012, the Board of Supervisors directed staff to proceed with this update. It was to have minimal changes. If needed, update the ordinance for compliance with state laws and reflect proposed revisions to the general plan. So here's what staff says about the update. The update is required in order to conform to new state laws. We're just implementing the general plan. No land use changes are being made. No new entitlements are being granted. Rezoning is to correct inconsistencies only. These references are carefully crafted and give the impression that not much is changing. However, here's what is actually in the update. Sweeping changes, we are talking hundreds of pages of changes to the zoning ordinance. The vast majority of the changes are not required by law. The court-ordered protections are being eliminated. While it may not be clear what all the actual changes are in this update, it is completely clear that the changes are not minimal. And it is not clear at all if our current board is aware of how much we have strayed from minimal changes. Hold on, I'm a moment here. Sorry, thanks. When you hear your supervisor saying, let's just get this done, They are not advocating for the public. This update strips away the court-required protective policies that were made integral to the voter-approved general plan. For example, the reduced densities controlling traffic congestion are being increased. Protective setbacks for agriculture and riparian protections are being reduced. Open space protections and hillside development restrictions are being weakened. Oak woodland protections, design standards, cultural resource protections, the scenic corridor ordinance, and many others are all being deferred. Noise standards are being relaxed. This update is gutting the voter-approved general plan. The update is neither an implementation nor just an update. So, aesthetics and quality of life. The 30% open space requirements were one of the court-required protective measures in the voter-approved general plan. The update completely exempts some projects, meaning there will be no open space, or it reduces the requirement to only 15% in the highest density areas where it was really most needed. It allows backyards and patios to be counted as open space. It also allows the developer to place the open space off-site, or they could just pay a fee instead of providing the open space. There are approximately 108,000 parcels in El Dorado County, excluding the cities of Placerville and South Lake Tahoe. The public is being told that approximately 8,000 of them are being rezoned with this update. The reality is that parcel data from the county indicates that over 37,000 parcels are being rezoned. This creates the possibility of higher density and incompatible uses throughout the county without notification to the affected neighbors. This update is so vast and overwhelming that we aren't sure what is really in it. This policy regarding opportunity areas is one example. It's to encourage development within designated opportunity areas to facilitate increased density and intensity of developments and to utilize incentives. We don't know where these areas are or what the criteria for locating them might be. We only know that they will be above and beyond the currently allowed density. So who does this benefit? And why the mystery? Our current traffic issues are bad enough, and we don't need any areas of density on steroids right now. And to tell you more about our traffic situation, here's Don Van Dyke.
Thank you. Well, I'll just give you a brief glimpse into what's happening here with the traffic. Most of you drive in our traffic, so you have a first-hand account. But here's a photo, typical morning commute in El Dorado Hills Boulevard, traffic backed up trying to get onto Highway 50 while the lights are green in the intersection. We see regular backups like this in Cameron Park and Shingle Springs and Placerville. It's interesting that the county in their draft DIR analyzing this update chose not to analyze the traffic at this intersection. Even though it's required to monitor traffic at all highways, roads, interchanges, and intersections in the county. In fact, the analysis for the update doesn't include any intersections or interchanges, in spite of multiple requests from citizens and Caltrans, and despite the requirement in our general plan. Highway 50 today, portions of it in our county are already beyond their capacity. The segment at the county line between county line and Latrobe Road is at stop and go status, and that is deemed level of service F. Level of service F is where there's a breakdown of traffic on the freeway. We have general plan policies in place to prohibit this condition. In fact, the supervisors have to vote a 4/5 majority to allow a segment of Highway 50 to go to level of service F. And that segment is not allowed to go to F. The policies in the general plan were a result of a voter-approved measure Y back in 1998, and it was later revised in 2008. Unfortunately, it was weakened slightly in 2008, but it still offers some protection. In spite of these general plan policies prohibiting level of service F, we're there, and not just this one segment of Highway 50. So, looking ahead briefly, the biggest factor affecting our traffic will be housing. Today, in the West County, between the county line and Shingle Springs, east side of Shingle Springs, we have 8,000 already approved parcels. People could go pull building permits and start building. In addition, developers have proposed another 8,000 homes in these areas that you see here on the map. And in Sacramento County, most of you probably know that Folsom's about ready to break ground on over 10,000 homes. And there are many additional projects south of 50 down through Rancho Cordova, so tens of thousands of new homes going in. And all of these will have a big impact on traffic in our county. It's interesting, I talked about the analysis that the county did for the draft DIR. Caltrans has their own projections, and they say that Caltrans, the traffic on Highway 50 at that same segment will remain level of service F through the year 2035, and in fact it will degrade by another 20%. And the segment from El Dorado Hills Boulevard to Bass Lake will go from level of service E now to level of service F, so it will worsen, as will several other segments of Highway 50 all the way up to Lake Tahoe. The county's analysis shows that lists this segment at the county line as level of service B and C, which is interesting. And they don't give a number for 2015 today, which is level of service F. And amazingly, somehow the county's traffic projections show level of service B and C in 20 years from now, after building all of these homes that I showed you on the last page. It's a little hard to believe. Are you going to believe Caltrans is the agency responsible for measuring, maintaining, and building the freeways? Or our county, which has vested interest in understating the impact of development? And of course, the traffic problems don't end with Highway 50. Many of these roads, major roadways, are congested today and will simply get worse. Even though improvements will be made to some of the roadways, the additional housing more than makes up for the improvements. So Green Valley Road, El Dorado Hills Boulevard, Cambridge, Cameron Park Drive, Missouri Flat, and many others are predicted to become either level service E or F or worse. And very briefly on water, we don't need to tell you we're in a drought. What you might not know is that the increased development proposed under this update will increase demands on groundwater supplies. That's a statement out of the Environmental Impact Report. It says, quote, "The production rate of pre-existing nearby wells would drop to a level that would not support existing land uses or planned land uses for which permits have already been granted." And this evaluation in the EIR does not even take into account our current drought conditions. Another policy change in the update would not make connection to public water mandatory. So subdivisions could potentially go in and drill wells and use groundwater, not required to use EID. So this update is really a threat to our water quality and supply. If you want to hear a lot more about water, there will be a meeting here next week, May 7th at 6:30, same place, to talk in detail about water. And now back to Laura.
All right, so we're asking that you don't blindly accept what we are being told about the general plan and zoning ordinance update. In summary, the update is broken. County residents have been misinformed about the intent and extent of the update. The update has substantial negative impacts to our quality of life. The vast majority of the changes are not required by law or for consistency. The draft environmental impact report is seriously flawed. This isn't really an update, it's a complete overhaul. So I'm going to play a video clip for you from the April 14th, 2015 Board of Supervisors meeting. This is where Community Services Agency Director Steve Pedretti gives the Board of Supervisors a status on the general plan update. And I'm hoping you can hear it really well, so let's see how the volume is.
Our consultant have already provided about 400 pages of responses to the previous comments on the draft EIR. It's going to take us some time. This is going to delay our response on this and the issuance of the final DIR by at least 2 months. We have to go through line by line and be very meticulous because there were so many comments. And some of these were just highlights. It would said they asked us to make comment, and I'm not getting the right terminology, but to make comments on certain things that were highlighted throughout those pages of documents. And so we have to look at those. We have to come up with a response. In some cases, the response or the question is very similar to a previous question, and so we need to make sure that we answer both of the questions, and they may be slightly different answers, but we have to tie them together on why they're consistent. So we have to be very meticulous. It's going to take a lot of time to go through all of the comments that are there and make sure that we do those correctly. So we're looking, and again, because we expect that we're anticipating there could be legal challenges, we have to be extraordinarily careful on this. So the bottom line, at least 2 months. It's going to cost us some more money working with our consultant. We have the money budgeted. We had planned on giving some of that money back to the general fund as part of our budget, but it looks like we're going to need additional funds. We're going to figure out exactly how much we need to get this done and how much time it's going to take, and we'll bring that back to you as soon as we can.
Mr. Chairman, CAO, I hope we will be supportive for staff to be as meticulous as necessary in responding to those. We've come a long way. We need to do this right. If it takes a couple of more months, if it takes that money that was originally budgeted, I think we need to get this right.
I agree, and we're looking at even reissuing, having a final EIR that has everything in one location so that it makes it easier to deal with.
I think I'm going to disagree.
Sure.
I'm going to disagree.
Okay.
Just because we budgeted for something. In these times, we're cutting programs for CASA, which helps kids, and senior programs. We have these expensive consultants and long-range planning with costs that are completely out of control and inconsistent why we put planning together. To say, well, we should do this because it sounds good, I disagree. We have some budget issues here, Steve. I think we need to find a better way to control our costs.
This is not an action item. Tomorrow we'll be talking budget. I appreciate your comment, but it's probably better kept for an item that would be an action. This is an update.
Yeah, and I did want to follow up on Supervisor Rinaldi's comment that Mr. Pedretti and I met yesterday, and we did discuss this. He brought me up to speed, and I told him, of course, any additional funds for consultants to propel this along was not part of the CAO's recommendations, and since this had just come to my attention. So we're going to continue working on it and see if we can bring your board a recommendation in the totality of all the things you'll have to consider. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Steve?
No, that's it.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, Steve. So this was a staff update. I don't believe it's a public comment, Sue.
As long as it's on the agenda, you have to take public comment.
No, we don't. It's a receive and file presentation.
So is this officially going to deny me this time?
I'm sorry?
Are you officially denying me to comment on this?
Well, we've had open forum.
I don't know.
We've had other, yes.
Thank you.
There you have it. So, based on what was said in that video, it is clear that we need to stop this update. Right now, our county budget deficit is currently about $20 million. They're talking about more consultant time and more staff time. That's going to be more taxpayer dollars spent. Staff is anticipating, you heard him say it, expensive litigation, which the board could stop with just 3 votes. Steve Pedretti, the Director of Community Services Agency, that was him, implies that the public comments from concerned citizens have caused this problem. In reality, the county is causing the problem. This developer-backed overhaul will lead to costly litigation. He said it. The public is being cut out of the process. You saw it. Supervisor Veerkamp would not let Sue speak to this item. I'm going to hand it over to John Rassler here, and he's going to tell you how you can take action to help us with this.
First of all, I would like to thank everyone for coming this evening and watching this presentation. But what do we do now? Do we leave with a cynical attitude and say, well, you know, we heard all of this before, nothing really has been changed, and we just go home now and say, okay, we knew about this? Or we take some type of action. I would like to give you a quote from Edmund Burke, who was a philosopher and an Irishman who was a member of the English House of Commons back in the 1700s. He said that all that good men have to do to have evil triumph is to do nothing. So if we all go home after watching this and don't do anything, you get what you pay for. Now, some of the things that we feel that you can do. Public pressure matters. Let's stop this madness. Tell our supervisors now that this update has gone sideways and must be stopped. We have provided you with the supervisor's contact information on the handouts as you came in. Stay informed. Get on our contact list to receive notices when this update goes to the supervisors for a vote. Just as with town center apartments, if the board abuses their discretionary powers to approve this flawed update, it will lead to more litigation. Sadly, sometimes that's our only recourse. Please help us spread the word about what you have learned or heard this evening. Okay, we need your help.
The most important part's in red.
All right, we need your help. We need your help to build a war chest. Donate to the legal fund through our website, www.saveourcounty.net. And now the down arrow. Now we have questions. By the way, as you leave, there are also jars where you can put in a donation. Any type of donation is gladly accepted. Questions? Right here.